And we're recording. Awesome. Hi, guys. Welcome to episode number 13 of the Lift Free and Diet Hard podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Coates, and I have my friend Susan Niebergall here with me today. So she's back having a previous guest on the old format when we had Dean with us. But it's been fun to revisit some of the really popular guests that we've had. And you've obviously been very busy with your online content creation, with the Inner Circle with Jordan Syatt and all that. So how have you been doing this past several months?
Great. Well, first of all, thank you for having me back. It's always great to speak to you. Been doing great. I've got a lot of irons in the fire kind of thing right now. The Inner Circle, we're really busy in the Inner Circle. Jordan and I have a lot of projects going on within the Inner Circle for our members. And that's keeping us super busy. Writing a book, finishing a book, actually. Well, actually, the book's kind of finished. I'm in the editing process. So this is a whole new world for me, by the way, because I'm not a writer at all. And I'm going through the editing process has been eye-opening. It's tedious. And I'm on the final phase of that. So there's light at the end of that tunnel with a lot of stuff to come between now and whenever it comes out. So that's keeping me super busy too. And then, I still have my hands in the one-on-one online space as well. Just not a lot of that as much as Inner Circle, because I'm all full-time Inner Circle pretty much. And then we just got a lot of stuff going on around this house. So you add that to the mix, like it started with the kitchen reno, and then it went downstairs to let's take out all the paneling and drywall it and insulate it, which turned into, okay, now we got to paint it. And then we came into my space. My space used to be this orangey color. Now it's a nice normal color. And we're just rebuilding this space. So there's a lot of stuff going on.
That some people chose that this year. My friends Colin and Allie DeWolf, and they're pretty regular listeners, so they'll probably be tickled at the shout out. They're gym owners, Back Alley Fitness in Medicine Hat here in Alberta, and so they've done, I think, a total renovation of their home on top of, with their gym running that, which has been a big job. And anybody who's a facility owner, I mean, I think you're working twice as hard just through all this, just to make sure you're checking off all these boxes, keeping your people safe and keeping your doors open. And on top of that, I hooked them up with Brad Dieter, who was looking for coaches with Macros Inc. So they both applied and both got on there. So I don't even know how they keep up with that pace.
That's crazy. That, it's so funny. You bring up the brick and mortar space. At one point, I thought that's what I was going to do. And early on, what I wanted to do was open a space that trainers can come and rent out space and train clients there. There's a huge need in this area for that because it really doesn't exist. And when I first started in the industry, I was a personal trainer. I started at a gym, and then I went to a training company that did nothing but training people. And they used facilities at office buildings and things like that. They paid rent to, but they really struggled with finding places to train people. And I thought, this is a huge need. And so I was going down that road. I started looking at facilities, looking at spaces. And I look back on that now and think, what was I thinking?
You got to do that well. So the situation I'm in. So I want no part of owning a facility. So I rent space, fully equipped, 10,000 square foot floor, athletic facility. It's got powerlifting, Olympic lifting, and general population, big turf area. So the owner is a good friend of mine, John Chung, and I used to work for a big commercial chain, or a small commercial chain here, and it keeps getting smaller and smaller. We're not on good terms. We'll leave it at that. Anyone who's they know the whole deal there. So me, Dean Somerset, and a whole bunch of other people used to work for that company. And then John wanted me to come over because he knew that I knew a lot of people in the industry. So he was very clever. He figured if he pulled me out, he'd get a whole shit ton more people. And that's exactly what happened. And we pay a small rent every month. And he's got offices with physical therapists. He's got chiropractors, massage therapists, and various other services. So it started as one. Now there are 4 locations, and there's leases in the works for more, and they're going to be expanding out of, we already have contracts and lease stuff signed outside of Alberta. So he's doing exactly that and does it extremely well. So he's been phenomenal at it. And he sees everything that's going on now as an opportunity, better chance to get a good lease arrangement in various places, as a lot of other gyms have struggled.
So two things. First of all, I don't know my Canada geography very well. Where is Alberta in the big, where are you in Canada?
Physically, Alberta is, so British Columbia is the furthest west province. They're big rectangles almost. And then we're the next most Western province.
Got it.
British
Okay.
Columbia, like physically and ideologically, is like Washington State and Oregon. Okay.
Got it.
Alberta, ideologically, the way it is really Texas North. It's oil, it's cattle, it's
wow. Okay.
So that sort of stuff, right? So in terms of like the most similarity, we're not quite as open with the gun stuff, but as far as Canadian provinces, definitely the most conservative out of all the Canadian provinces, us and our neighbor. So yeah, so we're on the western side.
Okay, so then what is the status of gyms where you are?
Open. Alberta and Saskatchewan, we're not as populous. Like Edmonton's still fairly big, million people, but we haven't been as affected by it as heavily. Like Canada and the US, I think on average are quite different. And then there's a little bit of a rise right now for sure. And then there's always that kind of mentality that is terrified and wants everything locked down and will, careful about my thoughts on this, but will sacrifice a lot of people to suicide and drug overdose and mental health to try to save every possible life, person who's within weeks of dying in an old elderly care home. So that might ruffle some people's feathers, and it's not simply that much of a straw man. But for the most part, I think everything here has been quite reasonable. The gyms were reopened after a 3-month shutdown of everything, as we didn't know what the hell was going on and everybody was worried. And now our government has been fairly clear in saying we're not going to shut small businesses because the consequence of doing that to everybody's livelihood is as bad, if not overwhelmingly worse.
Amen.
Kicking a terrible can down the road. So in Ontario, so in Toronto and a couple of other areas, Ottawa, the government has ordered gyms and restaurants shut down. So there's a big outbreak of this. What do we know? We know that people who are obese are definitely disproportionately, killed by this virus. And all the examples of, like, I've heard medical professionals talking, and the news media doesn't want to grab onto it too much, but most of, if not virtually all of the younger people who have died, turns out they're actually morbidly obese. This is a very, very strong relationship. So what do we know? We know that this virus disproportionately affects people with high blood pressure, obesity, and major other comorbid issues. So one of the best things you can possibly do is to be active. Now, and you get these people who are like, oh, you don't need a gym to be active. Okay, like that's not a helpful sentiment, and especially now we've got snow on the ground the last little bit. So outdoors fitness is not necessarily very viable for most people. So, I'm a big advocate that the gym should be open and that,
you and me both.
Closing small businesses while everybody buys all their stuff on Amazon isn't exactly good for society. We've had the greatest, wealth transfer, I think, and accelerated in our history to these large corporations away from small businesses. So, but I'm not a bit far afield. I think everybody a regular listener will probably know that this is how I look at the world. But I believe in small business. I believe in gyms. I believe in fitness. I believe that we should have the freedom to operate these facilities, be held to task to operate them safely and do a good job. I think spin studios, I feel so bad for spin studio owners because we had a place in Hamilton, Ontario, where there's a bad outbreak. And I just don't know how you can make a spin studio work versus erecting physical barriers around every single bike.
Yeah.
There have been several incidents of those. So they've got to do better. They've got to change something. But I think just general gyms, we have so much aggregate data out of the US where, as we know, things weren't as locked down. And we just are not seeing viral spread across these massive aggregations of data from all these gym check-ins. Same thing in the UK. So we know that general gyms are not the spreading vector.
Right.
We do seem to know that it's private gatherings, right? These seem to be the things that are driving the spread of this thing, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I was asking because I spoke to some woman literally before we just hopped on from Toronto, and her frustration was that gyms were open, then they shut them for a big chunk of time, then they reopened them, and now they're shutting them again. And they evidently, she says they said a couple months or whatever, but she believes it's going to be till the first of the year, probably, because they're going to butt up right up to that timeline.
Well, there's a few problems with this. First of all, you're destroying the confidence of small business owners, in this case, gym owners and restaurant owners, to even bother trying to run these places. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of places that are hanging on by a thread. You shut them back down again, you're killing them. Two, these owners don't have any confidence that the government won't turn around and do it again. So why on earth would you even consider starting a gym or a restaurant right now in places that show an inclination towards shutting stuff? And three, and from some of the language we've seen out of that government in Ontario, it hints at they're punishing people. There's no evidence to support the shutting down of restaurants and gyms because of the COVID spread. It's interventionism. And this is something I've always felt a problem with when, and it's always government, of course, and I don't want to get into anti-government rants because that's not how I think. But instead of doing nothing, then there's this appearance of doing something, however non-evidence-based or completely useless or harmful that intervention is. It's the act of doing something to seem to the people like you're actually making an effort. And I think gyms and restaurants are low-hanging fruit. It's really punishing people, punishing the business owners, and punishing people's physical and mental health. So it's not the answer. And I think you're destroying the people's confidence in that the governments will not react. And I'm grateful for, there's some issues with our government here. There's issues with any government everywhere. If you don't think so, you're kidding yourself. But our government here has been very clear in the fact that they do not intend to lock down small business anymore. And, I'm a small business owner. I don't own a physical facility, but I work in one. That gives me confidence to be able to go forward and say, okay, like at least these guys get it and they understand the importance of this.
Yeah. And I just want to say too, on the side of speaking of your business, one of your clients that you post highlights of a lot, Larry. Yes. Oh, shout out to Larry, because I love watching Larry. He's like a badass. I mean, I love watching what you do with him, and I love watching him. This is great.
If anybody is a listener but is not on my Instagram, you can find, I usually post maybe a video of Larry every once or twice, every 2 weeks, 1 to 2 weeks. And Larry's 70. He's got this sort of grizzled Santa sort of thing going on.
Yeah.
He grew up on a farm. He's a retired trades worker, pipe fitter, and he's strong. He's actually in phenomenal health given his stature. He's a stout man. He's short and stout. He's powerful. So yeah, we've got to do cool stuff. Like he can take trap bar deadlift. He won't let me post this video. It's like a 403-pound single trap bar deadlift. He thinks that he should be able to do it for 8 before it counts. And I'm like, no, it's not good enough to post yet for him. We've got other video of him doing heavy trap bars. He can squat over 2 plates for some reps on a safety squat bar, and he's hitting parallel depth. He can push a sled loaded up, and he does lots of other cool stuff. So he's fun to work with. He's really intelligent. He's really wise, and it's
my hero. Shout out to you, Larry.
There's a whole bunch of stuff to this too. I mean, one is anybody who's looking at this, sees, well, shit, if he's 70 and can do this stuff, I mean, I'm 35. I have no fucking excuse. Or maybe it just gets people to think about their own parents or, the older people in their lives, adults, and go, okay, this is something that will help preserve their physical and emotional well-being. I mean, Christ, we don't dance around the fact you put it out there. You're 60 and you're doing weighted chin-ups. You are shredded, right? It's super cool. And this stuff is hopefully motivational and inspirational for other people to, if they're in that age cohort, to say, shit, I can totally do this. Or if they're a lot younger, saying, well, I should be taking this stuff a lot more seriously right now. Or maybe, have conversation with the people in their lives who fall into that category. And who knows, maybe someone comes and works with me directly, or maybe they find another trainer that I really trust, or, somewhere else in the US, they go seek out a trainer who's going to help them.
It's interesting because I tell people I don't have the genetics. Like I get this all the time. You must have great genetics or whatever, all those things, or you're athletic. Well, no, I never played sports. I was a music person. So I never played sports. I was a sports fan. I mean, yeah, I grew up going to DC sports stuff. So yeah, I know a lot about sports, but I was never really athletic, except I was pretty good at powder puff football, which is kind of like co-ed flag football. I was really good at that. But, we don't really have teams for that. That was just through the gym and whatever. But so I don't have all this stuff that people assume I have. What I have is I just wanted to work hard, and I started to work hard. That's kind of what I did. And my message is, as it's never too late. It's never too late to do any of this stuff. I don't care how old you are. Doesn't mean you have to do weighted chin-ups for God's sakes, but it does mean that if you want to, you could still, do it. I finally got the 45-pound weighted chin-up the other day that I've been working on for so long. I got a ways to go on that. That was just one of those days, I think. But still, give yourself a goal. I don't care if it's like doing a push-up or whatever it is. Give yourself a goal because you can do it,
At 260 pounds, I am weighted chin-ups when I do them. So I got to
say. Amen. Amen.
Extra weight. So one of the things I wanted to ask you, it sort of shines through, but to be more specific, obviously we've talked about what happened this year and it's been really disruptive to a lot of people. And I think it's adversely affected a lot in our industry. What's been your attitude and, pattern of actions given everything that's happened? Because you said you've been working on all these things.
It's interesting. I think when the pandemic first hit, it felt like a snow day down here because, when we get snow in the DC area, things shut down and it's kind of like, ooh, cool, this little vacation. That was the attitude at the beginning. And then as it was dragging on, I found myself really starting to slip mentally like, okay, this is not feeling normal anymore. And one thing that I did to give myself, I don't want to say give myself purpose because that sounds a little drastic. Like I was horribly far off. I wasn't, but I gave myself 3 things, movement wise that I was going to do every day. Discipline, just keep the discipline. I didn't have the gym open, but I have a gym here, not the same feeling, at least at the time. So I decided I was going to do band pull aparts every day, 300 of them, because my shoulders, I have a history with shoulders. So let's keep those guys healthy. I was going to start doing chin-ups every day because I walked outside to my chin-up bar and I felt like at the beginning, it was like 6 chin-ups felt heavy. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? And when I was talking to Jordan about it, we laughed. I'm 6 pounds heavier than I was when I really was focused on chin-ups before because I did a muscle building phase. Oh, okay. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. So I want to get stronger with my new weight at chin-ups. So I was going to do a grease the groove chin-ups every single day. And I added every week how many I would do, that kind of thing. And then I was doing these crazy old things called dragonflies. Some people call them dragon flags, whatever they are, which is insanely hard. And I worked on those a couple of years ago and got pretty good at them, let it go for a while. So I was starting to rebuild those, just those 3 things every day I had to do. And what that did for me was it really kept me focused during this time of uncertainty, and I think that helped drive me. It helped me keep in the business game. Like it kept me fresh and kept me going. I had a purpose. I had some drive. That really worked for me. And then as this pandemic, oh my gosh, for those of you all can't see this, but I'm watching this adorable cat come on my computer screen right now because I'm a cat person too.
Guys, yeah, Ozzy, for any listeners who are
Ozzy.
Big fluffy, God, he's got to be about 18 pounds. Anyway, so he just climbed up next to me, so I've gone. I'm sorry for that interrupting you.
Oh no, I love to be interrupted by a cat. but no, I was just saying I just gave myself something to do. But what I had found is that as things have gone on, and even though things here really have reopened, I mean, we have in-house dining now. I mean, we've got pretty much everything, but masks, blah, 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 all that. It still doesn't feel right. There's something that still doesn't feel right. And I got away from my daily whatevers when the gym started opening. And I'm like, you know what? I was starting to feel lost again. And so I've started implementing, not all of that again, but a couple little things that I'm doing every single day for that focus again, because I can feel it's still, I think it's this underlying anxiety that a lot of people feel, that uncertainty, like when is this going to end? Can we get back to normal? And when is that going to be? I think everyone feels that way to a degree.
There's a saying, it's like pandemics don't end when the virus is gone. Pandemics end when people decide it's over. And this is sort of this ideological war. I think it's most prevalent in the United States, but it exists everywhere, where a lot of people just kind of, okay, we're done with this. Now let's go back to normal. And we'll cherry pick the evidence to support that it's not that bad. And then you have the people who are on the very other end of it, who are waving around cherry picked worst case scenario stuff. And I think the truth is in the middle. to justify, oh, we need to lock everything down again. And I think it's naive to think that we're going to be able to just shut people down and contain them in homes. I mean, that might work in China, and that's not going to work in the U.S. So as much as people want to, I think it's kind of wasted breath to vilify the United States for its reaction, because it's more complicated than that, right? It's an interesting society. It values freedom, and perhaps that's in conflict with the consequences of what's happened. But ultimately, it will be the people that will decide, okay, we're kind of done with this, and you're not going to be able to stop that. And I think that's going to freak a lot of people out. Well, I think those people definitely need to take added precautions, but I think more and more and more, there's going to be a major push to get kind of back to normal. And at the same time, I think there's some stuff that will take a very, very long time to get back to normal. I think that global tourism is going to, in terms of like getting back to normalcy, I think we're talking 3 to 5 years before we're even looking at that. But I don't want to look at the worst case scenario, and I try not to look at the stuff outside of my control. And ultimately, one of the themes that I try to put out there is you're in control of your own attitude and your own actions in the face of the things beyond your control. And a lot of my guests that I've had on recently and through this are taking control of what they can. They're working very, very hard on their businesses and their brands. And a lot of the people who are very engaged with my social media and the listeners, they've taken this year to be really engaged with their social media. I did that, to write, to create, to start podcasts, to start YouTube channels. Find the vehicle that most interests you to share with people. Like a lot of this stuff, you probably, I suppose it was like probably 3 or 4 years ago, you kind of jumped on this. You, along with Jordan Syed, Carter Good, there's a group of people that kind of were all part of Jordan's sort of influence, who really started putting out a lot of infographics. And then what happened? Because you guys were the ones on the forefront of that, your audiences grew. You have over 100,000 followers. Chad Hargrove, who was my last guest, over 100,000 followers. Carter is 400,000 something, and Jordan's in the 6s. So that clearly works. And that alone establishes a certain type of credibility and authority in this space. You have far greater reach to influence people with the stuff you're doing. So you just got on that stuff kind of earlier on. And I do think for sure it was probably a little easier to build audience with Instagram then than it is now. I think the algorithm changes, and I'm having fun watching mine grow this year. It's not at that same kind of pace, but it's been rewarding. But it still doesn't mean you can't do it. You just have to find consistency and a format that works for you. And the other thing I really like to put out there is, your ideas are still valuable. So let's say anyone listening, if you already follow Susan, you see that she has a big following, but your information, I mean, every once in a while, it's like, oh my God, like that's such a brilliant thought. But I think a lot of the stuff you're doing specializes in the practical. And I bet you tons of people look at that and go, shit, I know that. I thought of that. Why didn't I put that on paper, electronic paper, and share it with the world? Or somehow think because they don't have the following that they're not able to share it. Well, you're just beating people to it because you're not, saying, well, you're not saying you're not worthy. You actually know that, hey, I'm going to put this stuff out there. It's good quality information. People are enjoying it. So I think people just need to get past this idea that what they have to say is actually, they're afraid that they're not worthy of saying it yet. They're afraid that, well, I haven't earned the right to put this information out there. But if you know this stuff, you're doing the audience you have, even if your audience is 1/100th of the size of what Susan has, your audience is still looking to you for good fitness information. And most of your audience is not following Susan, is not following Jordan, is not following Carter, but they like you. So don't be afraid to share with them. And God, for fuck's sakes, do not worry about naysayers or trolls or people who are not your supporters, who might disapprove of what you're putting out there. You're not trying to serve those people. Their thoughts don't count. And by pandering to them, you are failing to serve the people that really want what you have to say.
I agree entirely. And I remember one thing that Jordan told me early on was that, we all know the basic stuff. I mean, it's not a secret, right? It's not like he didn't, he jokes, he talks about calorie deficit all the time. Well, he didn't invent that, right? I mean, that's just, but he talks about it in his voice. And so that's what he was saying. He goes, we all know about calorie deficit, but no one's heard it in your voice. And you and how you want to relay that to people. And that made it, that kind of struck me like, you're right. I mean, because I was overthinking, like, well, everyone's already talking about that, I can't talk about that. Well, yeah, I can, but because I have my own way of saying it, or my own way of presenting it, or whatever, maybe my way will resonate. How sometimes somebody can say something one way and someone else can say it another way, and that other way might register with you for some, it's not like it was better or what, it's just different, you know.
And
um
there's also, the individual differences. The fact that, you're an older adult and a woman
yeah.
might resonate with a certain audience, where Carter, good, fuck, he's still a kid, right? He's like, what? He's mid-20s.
Yeah.
He was really overweight, lost a whole bunch of weight, so he's got that transformation. I mean, Jordan's this Jewish kid who loves jujitsu and Harry Potter, right? So that's different
Right.
again. And I always throw out Sohi Leah there, right? So he comes, she's again a diff. She's got that, like, she's brilliant, highly educated, but there's still that like super adorable factor there. And it's not like you guys are all talking in completely different realms. A lot of the underlying premises are very, very similar.
Right.
That it's each individual voice, but I also think that different people, like, I'm this huge dude, right? I'm a big guy. That doesn't work for everybody, right? Whereas some of the same people that my message just, I'm not their thing, they're going to love you. They're really going to be engaged with who you are.
I think there aren't a whole lot of advantages of being my age. There really aren't, to be perfectly honest. But I think one of them is that women that are in my age neighborhood have struggled the same way I did. And to see somebody kind of beat it and be able to have lost the weight and feel good and move well and strong and all that stuff is hope, for women. And I think because this whole time period that women go through in middle age is rough, physically, emotionally, everything, it's really tough. And you just want to throw in the towel and just say screw it, right? And when you have that little bit of hope, then maybe that'll motivate you to start doing things and start bringing on the change. And that's what I want to do. And that's the advantage I have. I don't have a lot of colleagues my age. I have a lot of colleagues, some that are turning the corner into the 50s, and I tell them, you're hitting the best decade of your life will be in the 50s. I tell that to everybody because I believe it. But I don't see a lot of people 60 and up in this active group that you and I are part of in the community. So it's a little lonely in that respect, but I look at myself now as I want to blaze a trail for people. I just want to show people that, yeah, you know what, you can do this. It's not impossible. I don't take steroids. I don't take all these crazy things. I just decided to change and I work hard at it, and that's kind of it. I'm not gifted or, anything crazy. It's just the switch flipped for me. It took a long time, but it finally flipped. And when it did, it was like, okay, look, I feel like this is a mission now. I feel like this is what I have to do.
And if anybody wants to sort of pause and think about it, you're a late starter in this industry. You had a entire career before you got into this stuff. But one of the reasons why there aren't a lot of women in that age bracket in the industry is because nobody was starting 40 years ago or 35 years ago amongst women in the strength world. Like, it just, doors weren't open there. It wasn't something that women did. So there's a number of, like, most of the people who are right around your age, like Charles Staley is a good example. I think he's exactly the same. Okay, they've been doing this stuff because it's more normal for men to be strength coaches. It's only probably in the last, maybe decade or so, or even less, where it's really been normalized for young women to get involved in that world. I think more than a fair share of women can easily be siphoned off into the the Instagram space, or they tend to get into more nutrition coaching, which is fine, or things that seem almost, maybe they're more attractive to them. And I don't think that we should force people to go into a space that they don't necessarily just want to go into, right? But I can see that female strength coaches will become more and more common, but it's going to take a couple of decades before they start aging into that age, right? So it's got to get there, but it's just not there yet. So I think the important thing is, if you got anybody who, if you're in your 40s, 50s, or even 60s, who is passionate about fitness and wants to explore a career in it, you're the example. You're the the inspiration for that, and they should absolutely embrace it. Like you said, it's never too late to go into that direction. You've been profoundly successful. And once I want to hear your thoughts on that, and then I want to pivot into one of the key relationships. You already hinted at, and the value of relationships to those successes.
Yeah, and I got certified as a trainer back when I was a school counselor, and that was just stemming from, I loved being in the gym. I loved doing that. I was still struggling at the time, with the whole nutrition thing. I didn't know it at the time, but I was, but I wanted to get certified anyway. And so I did the whole work a full day at school, go to the gym after school, part-time training gig, did my hours at whatever it was called, Fitness First or whatever it was called. Got a lot of great experience there, and so if anybody's listening and is new to this, hands-on experience by far is the best teacher of anything. And I highly recommend you have to do that before you get into the online space. I truly think you'll be a better coach because of it. It won't work the same way in reverse, practical experience is a great teacher in anything, actually. And then, I retired from the school system, and I was panicked, to be honest with you, because I was I was an educator for 33 years. So that was my identity. That's how everybody knew me. And I was leaving that. And it's like, holy crap, now what? And then this I don't want to say it fell into my lap, but I was training staff members at my school after school. We had a weight room in our school, and I started there on my own. And that turned into groups. I had to bring somebody in to help me with that. And that's how kind of the whole thing started. And then pretty soon it got too much to do. I just didn't have enough hours in the day to do all the in-person. So I started moving them to online and, getting connected with Jordan. He helped guide me down that road too. So all of this after retirement, and here I'm thinking, geez, when I retire, I am just going to sleep in, and I'm going to drink coffee and watch the morning talk shows. And I'm going to go on a trip in September, because for the first time in my life, I would be able to do that. Because, if you think about it, when you grow up, you're in the school calendar, right? I went to college, still in a school calendar, got a teaching job right after college, still in a school calendar in education for the next 33 years. So my whole life was a school calendar. I don't know anything else until the day I retired, and how life has changed.
Your summers off the whole time, pretty much. That sounds wonderful. My mom, by the way, is a retired teacher too. So
Love it. Love it.
I have a lot of respect for, that profession, that world.
I do, especially right now. Boy, my colleagues, I talk to them. I still talk to a lot of them about what they're having to do right now is insane. And I couldn't have handled it. I told one of my counseling colleagues, I said they would have fired me, because I would have said, screw, this is for the birds. It's not what I got into this for.
I have a young teacher as well as one of my clients. And, before the schools had reopened, everything was good. She was crushing the gym 4 times a week, loving it. Her and another longtime client of mine trained together. And then as soon as school ramped up, oh my God, I have to send text reminders. She realizes the value of making sure she makes that time and leaving the school. She is working heavy hours. It's a lot of work. It's very stressful on them. So if you have anybody, if you work with any teachers, you have anybody in your life who is in that profession, show them some love, because they're
absolutely show them some love.
Getting it, or anybody in the healthcare profession at all. I work with a few of those people too, and there's a heavy toll on them. They're pretty crushed mentally through what they've been dealing with.
100%.
A little bit, and I don't think it's unfair to say that Jordan's presence in your universe has played a major role in your career success. And anyone who's spends time on Facebook, I think Facebook's where you see this a little more. We all have those friends who, I don't care about the fit pro circle jerk is the language they always use. And I can think of a couple, but I love them to death. But it's this attitude of I could go at a load. And I think in some cases they're focused on the people right in front of them, which is fine too. But they tend to turn against the greater industry. I get a ton of referrals and a lot of really fulfilling things out of my relationships across the industry. This podcast is all about that. And I love the idea of, inspiring, helping other trainers who are coming up through. So what are your thoughts on, relationships and the value of that stuff in your career?
The difference maker, I think, definitely, Jordan is responsible for me being right here talking to you where I am and building my business and actually transforming how I look and how I think and the physical piece too, because I first connected with him as my online coach. Um, and then we just clicked. I mean, it's so funny. You find somebody that you have so much in common with, and with a 30-year age gap, that's kind of crazy, right? And we joke about this. We say that if you look at our partnership on paper right now, it looks ridiculous. Um, and it's so funny. The age thing has always been in the back of my head since we started working together in the inner circle. I kept thinking, I was just paranoid about it for some reason. And I finally figured out why. And he didn't understand it because he doesn't even think about our age difference at all. But here's why, because back when I was his age in my late 20s, this would never have happened. A 28-year-old would never have partnered up with a 60-year-old, or whatever, and started. That would not have happened. That's why it feels weird to me, because that's what I remember of being in that age. That's just how it is kind of everywhere now. So society is different. So that's on me. And he just throws that at me, goes, no, that's all on you. No one cares. But I think when you find the person that you gel with, and we connect on all cylinders, absolutely, with such an age gap difference, I think that's kind of really remarkable. It. And so that's why he brought me into the inner circle. And we've, together, we've made the inner circle better. I mean, and he and I say that. I think we're better together. That's what we tell everyone. We feel like we're better together. So that's why we're doing this together. And I mean, it's been great learning from him. I've learned so much from him. He says he's learned a lot from me too. I'm bringing life experience to the table. I often say, I was your age. I know what's coming for you. I know what's coming.
Life experience, absolutely. I mean, what sometimes people don't clue in, because I put it out there, like, I'm 42 years old and I've just been throwing it all over social media. Just a few days ago was my 10-year anniversary as a personal trainer, which means, do your math, I started this career at 32. A lot of life experience and a lot of in the gym leading up to it. And that's kind of where it was born from. But I was a late starter. So life experience is really valuable. And I know there's going to be some younger people who start at 19 to 20 as traders. Like, you guys, I admire your tenacity and desire to do it, because it's tough starting out in this business at that age. Like, shit, Jordan started out as a teenager. But the most valuable thing you'll do is to continue to gain a lot of life experience. So on that front.
I don't want to sound like the old crotchety, back in my day, we all used to, that, like, you whippersnappers and all that. I mean, but I do think there is some validity in being my age and what I've experienced or whatever related to fitness or not. My education background and psychology in particular, with my counseling background, has played a significant role in helping me through this process. I think because, when I was going through the whole certification process of becoming a trainer and doing all of that, the whole working with people was natural for me, because that's what I did for a living every day. Talk to people and help people, modify things to help people be successful. That's what I do day in and day out. So that piece I already knew. For a lot of people just starting, that's a whole new ballgame. Learning how to communicate, learning how to teach. We're teachers. We're teaching people skills, and not everyone's a great teacher. That is a skill you have to learn. And that's challenging. And so I guess I had an advantage going into this marriage of my education background and training background, that half of it was what it was, because I already knew that piece. So now I needed to learn the physical stuff and all the terminology. And, I went back, I didn't go back to school, but when I got certified through ACE, and I felt like I was getting a freaking college degree because it was so foreign to me. I'm a music person and a psychology person. I got those terms and all that stuff. But when you started talking, different, and the whole anatomy thing, and that was new for someone in her. I mean, I was in my 40s when I got certified, but that was intimidating, and then to be in an industry where my colleagues are 20 to 30 years younger than me, then you start doubting yourself and you're like, why would anybody listen to me? Why would anybody want to listen to this old person as opposed to somebody who's younger? So those were real fears I had, real fears.
I think it works both ways, because you get the 21-year-old who's, been in the industry a year or two and says the same thing. Why would
Yeah.
anybody listen to me?
Yeah,
I'm younger, right? So
absolutely.
in any position or point of view that anyone has, people will say the same thing. Why would anybody listen to me? It ties in with imposter syndrome, which has been a common theme in recent episodes, because I think everybody who's really successful, if they don't still deal with it, definitely dealt with a fair share of it along the way. So if you as a listener are feeling, I've been trying to do this little call to action every episode. If you have had an experience of imposter syndrome, or you are especially feeling it right now, I want you to shoot me a message on Instagram, okay? Because I want to connect with you. If you've never talked before, I want to hear from you, because more and more people are crawling out, and I'm finding out they're listening to the podcast. I'm like, geez, I had no idea you were. But seriously, like, if you're dealing with any imposter syndrome, please, reach out, because I think everybody goes through it. I always think that it's sort of a major red flag if somebody genuinely has never experienced it. I think some people will claim, but they really have. They just don't want to say it.
Yeah.
But to me, it's almost a little soulless if someone's like, nope, everything's always been great. I've always been confident. I always knew exactly what I'm doing. Really? Week number 5, you did? Okay, sure.
More power to you, I guess.
Yeah, maybe. And there probably are some genuine people who really just aren't afflicted by it. But for me, I think most everybody has. And I think
yeah,
the superstars of our universe, the household names, have probably had it as bad as anybody else.
I have a lot of people tell me that I'm relatable. And I think one of the reasons why that is because I don't put up pretense on knowing everything. And I screw up all the time, so, I mean, all the time, whether it's filming a video or posting something that has a big spelling error or something stupid, I mean, I do things all the time. I'm a human being. And the difference now for me, though, is they'll humiliate me. Like, I would be devastated because the perfectionist in me would get all riled up and oh my God, the world's going to end. But now it's like, sorry guys, I screwed up. This video sucks or whatever. I mean, I do the best I can, obviously, but I just want to portray a real person behind all of this who just wants to help people and work hard. And, that's kind of it.
I think it's important that we don't try to appear too superhuman, right? You got to be authentic.
Yeah.
And you can look at a lot of people that I like in the industry. I commonly cite sort of a guy like Luca Hocevar is a really good example. I like Luca because Luca puts out a lot of stuff about, hard work, right? He's kind of tireless, but he can seem superhuman in his confidence and what he accomplishes and what he's doing. I think anyone who kind of follows me knows that I'm involved in a lot of projects, a lot of things, and work full time as a coach on top of all these things, the podcast. But it is tiring for sure. But I find it both motivating to see people who've got that work ethic. I like functioning that way. But I also want to make sure people understand, like, that comes at a cost. And it's not superhuman ability. I'm militant about my sleep, and I'm militant about getting my workouts in. But I think my girlfriend would probably like if I'd make a little bit more time for her.
It's a balancing act, isn't it?
Yeah, it totally is. So if you're struggling to feel like you're supposed to do more, like, first of all, set that aside. Focus on the things that you're doing well. Every last one of us has stuff that we struggle with. I recently hired, and I'll shout her out again, my friend Tara Arndt. She is going to be setting up all my email marketing stuff. And it's not like I'm going to be marketing anything just yet, but I want to have those systems in place as following grows. I'm going to start working on accumulating more of a genuine email list, and then as articles get published, send it out to everybody. So if that's something you're interested in, I'll have a collection thing on my website. We're going to revamp that. So, hey, I'd love to have your email address, because at the end of the day, we should all be building email lists. But that's something that I haven't done particularly well up to this point. I outsourced it to someone who's a pro. My intention has been to put these things up on YouTube. I really haven't done that yet. So there's only so much time we have. And a lot of you guys are seeing the stuff we're doing, not the stuff we're not doing. So is there anything that people may not know, but you're like, oh my God, I struggle with this, or I feel like I should be doing this, but I'm not?
Oh, I mean, when I first started with this, I was working myself silly. till like 11 o'clock at night every night. And I'm like, I can't do that. And so what I'm discovering with me now is sleep is becoming is an issue. And here's the interesting part. The earlier part of the pandemic, my sleep was like, I've never slept better in my life. And I have no idea why, because I haven't changed like really anything. And now it's not great at all. And I'm really feeling it. And it is kind of my mission right now to shut down business after dinner. So like after we eat dinner, clean up whatever, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to sit there and start answering DMs and emails and stuff. I want to really shut it down. So I like go back to my room at like 8 o'clock now, and I'll get in the shower, or whatever, and I will turn on something on Netflix, or I'll turn on a show. I mean, just something else that's not reading. I have a couple of really good books that I really want to read, but I'm refraining from reading business-ish stuff at night. This has got to be me. So I'm trying to practice this, and I'm not great at it. But my goal is to improve my sleep, somehow really get that under control consistently. I'll have a day or two where it works really well. And you'll relate to this too. I have a 19-year-old cat. So yeah, right. She's like this. You said yours is like 18. In her heyday, she was 16. She's now about 6 pounds. I mean, she's lost most of her weight, right? She has hyperthyroid. Medication is whatever. We're just living life as we can go right now, right? She's got dementia. She meows. It's just like, that's a little added, like, every now and again, she'll not know where she is, and she'll meow and wake me up. I mean, it's things like that. Little side note.
Yeah, Ozzy's he's 9. He'll be 9 next month, right? So I haven't faced that stuff yet, but that is sort of like a thought too. It's like, as he gets older, right? Like, he's been part of my life for so long. I can't even imagine not having him around. I don't let him outside.
I was thinking today, how interesting is it that when you're younger and you have a baby, the goal is get the baby to sleep through the night, right? Well, I've come full circle. I did that with my kid. Now it's me. The goal is to get me to sleep through sleep through the night. And I just started laughing. I'm like, oh my God, this is where I'm at. I've come full circle. Get the baby to go to sleep all night. And now it's get the old adult to sleep through the night.
Getting my cat to sleep through the night and not scratch at doors.
Yes. Oh, right. That's the worst. Right. And ours doesn't, I mean, she'll just kind of go in the hall and meow, because I don't know if she knows. She's got feline dementia. I'm sure of it. But right before we came on, she will go outside with me. We went out the front door. We walked down the sidewalk to our mailbox, and she walked right back with me. That's like her daily walk.
So something I alluded to earlier, it's the difference between, like, I think some of the people in the industry who've really adopted to the circumstance this year, worked really hard and have built brand business and set themselves up going forward. And I think a lot of people probably have struggled. It partly depends on where you're living. Like, trainers and gym owners in California and New York are definitely having a worse time of it than the ones in Oklahoma, right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Presence of the virus, but also, more stringent governmental controls on it. So I have a theory, and I have an unpublished article that'll be coming out on True Coach probably in about 3 weeks, where I think this is the best time to stay in the industry. And I think there's a whole bunch of factors going on there. So I wanted to see what your thoughts were. And in particular, one of the points is, I think that the concerns and the fear around this, with now the knowledge I alluded to earlier about what we know leads to worse outcomes, obesity and hypertension and whatnot. I think that there's going to be this cohort of the 50 plus crowd at the very least, who maybe have always thought, hey, I should get in shape, or they sort of value fitness. And I have a feeling that particular cohort is going to make a major shift into gyms. I don't think it'll fundamentally change, the United States, North America, and all of a sudden everybody's fit and they're like a bunch of Norwegians. But I do think there'll be enough of it where it'll create a surge in demand for our services. And it's an age cohort that also, on average, has the financial resources to hire trainers. So what do you think about that?
Totally agree. I wish we would be talking. We talk about COVID all the time. We meaning governments
Everybody, media.
and play talk about COVID all the time, and we don't talk nearly enough about what you were saying are the markers of people that get hit hardest, like obesity and all those things. We need to be talking about those because I think I agree with you. I think there's going to be a surge with this, especially when I think the COVID numbers start going down, and we're going to be hearing more about the group of people that got hit the hardest with it and why, and those things, how we can act on that now. I think that will come out. And I think my age group, younger than me, will be a big part of that. I do. And I think it might even be a big part of that working out at home. I don't know I don't know how many people will go to a gym or whatever. That may take time to get that going. But the working out from home piece, and Jordan and I have a big upswing with that in the inner circle. And we hopped on that early in the pandemic by creating more at-home based kind of options for our crew members because they were in need. Gyms are shut down and whatever. And so whether gyms stay shut down or they reopen, maybe people don't want to go. And I could see the people in the 50s be a little antsy about going, at least at the beginning. But I think there's going to be an incredible need for all of us moving forward. So yeah, anybody that's kind of either pretty new or just starting and feeling frustrated, whatever, no, you stick with it. Push through this, because I think this industry will benefit greatly, and we can help a lot more people too. I truly believe that.
I do believe there's also the question of the supply of trainers, because I do think there's going to be an upsurge in demand. I do.
Yeah.
But I also think that there's going to be a certain group of trainers, the ones who, despite best intentions, have really struggled. And they always are stressed out about income consistency. Now, I certainly think that, the stereotypical salary job is no more, if not less, stable and secure than our income. It's just a lot of people aren't comfortable with the not knowing where the next client's coming from, so on and so forth. So those people who kind of struggled and were uneasy with the variability on a good day really, really got hammered this year. This is going to stress them out. So I suspect that group will probably leave the industry in droves, because we see tons of turnover in our industry anyway. That's
anyway, right.
Accelerator. I also suspect that there may be a slowing down of entry into the industry, be it gyms not hiring as many people, not as many opportunities. Sure, you'll probably see more online Instagram coaches, and there's good and there's bad in amongst that, but there's certainly unqualified people who've got a following who are trying to take advantage of that. And then there are genuine people who are really good with their online media, who are also really, really qualified, who are going to grow. But either way, there may be growth there, but I suspect you're on the floor in-person gym trainers. There's going to be a slowing of new ones, which will create a delay in their growth and skill acquiring. There's going to be a group that will leave. And I think what that does is it leaves a lot of potential and opportunity for anybody who does weather this and stick it out. It's going to take some innovation. And I think building in the ability to be in the online space, I think, is essential. And kind of to your point earlier about you need that in-person experience. I've written something on this too. I mean, in an ideal world, sure. But I also think that going forward, being online is going to be a part of the career development of trainers earlier than ever before.
I agree.
We do have a choice here. Look what Jordan and Mike are doing with how to become a personal trainer, right? I mean, they have a mentorship for online trainers.
And I'm a part of that, by the way. I'm one of the coaches. Yeah.
So there you go. So you're in that one too.
Yeah.
And then obviously, I'm a big believer in Jonathan Goodman, the personal trainer development center, the online trainer academy, right? Recently he had me, promoting that on my social media. And I have bought that myself. So we have all these great resources and educators in that space. So I think it's good to, and you weren't, so I'll make sure I'm clear on this, but some of our industry like to complain and say, oh, you need to be on the gym for arbitrary numbers 5 years before you can train. On bullshit. I mean, who says that? Where did that number come from? But that's also not realistic anymore. And people are going to enter the online space, whether you like it or not, or deem it okay or not from your gatekeeper position. So you may as well be part of the education of that group of trainers, benefit from it. Jordan, clearly, you guys are all benefiting from it because you guys are there and getting paid to teach, trainers to how to do the online space well. Because I think that's helping a lot more, capitalizing on it and having those people engage with you versus kind of looking down upon the new trainer who, maybe they've been in the business 6 months and then COVID hit. What, they're not allowed to do online programs, home workouts for their clients who like them and they have a good relationship. But sure, a trainer on the floor after 6 months is probably not a great trainer under most circumstances. I don't want to go back and think too hard about the mistakes I probably made in my first year.
Yeah.
But the clients like them. They're trying really hard. If you're the person who's listening to this podcast and you're fairly new to the industry, like seriously, I would rather see you successful on that front. And I'm myself not a formal educator of online coaching, but I know people who do it well. You guys, your guys' team, John Goodman's work, and there's others. So like, go to those resources and be really great at this stuff, and it will accelerate your competency in that space. So it's not about the right to do it. I think it's going to happen regardless whether we deem it appropriate or not.
Oh yeah. It's changed so much. It's changing, as we're going through this. When I first got in, it was not like it is now, I mean, so it even in the short time, it has changed dramatically. And I think also, people in their 20s and stuff that are breaking in and getting into the online space, that's kind of the whole online thing for everything is kind of what they know, what they grew up with. It's very familiar. It's quick, the instant gratification and stuff. And I think one problem I see is that people want everything very quickly. And I get it. You got bills to pay. I mean, it can be nerve wracking if this is what you are doing for your career and you have rent to pay and all those things. Of course, that's going to be like something on your mind all the time. And again, maybe this is the big advantage I have is that that's not part of my thing at all. I don't care, because frankly, I already had a career, I have retirement, I have all of that. So I could stop this today and not look back. Which is an advantage for me. I don't have to worry. This is a real worry with people. And so, the whole patience thing that we talk about with losing weight and building muscle and all this, it applies to building a business as well, and the tenacity that's required to do that. And I think that the tenacity that's required for building a business, that tests you, that's a toughie. I think maybe more so than anything else, and I'm not a business person by any stretch of the imagination, but on a good day, it's tough, and it would be very easy to say, you know what, screw it. I'll just go to the bank and get a job at the bank or whatever,
And I actually do think that job at the bank isn't as safe or truly alluring as it may seem.
Yeah.
You can go from all your income from, whatever X salary to zero very quickly. I love that concept because it's sort of presented in the book Anti-Fragile by Nassim Nicholas Taleb.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone's ever read it. And it's funny because I've been talking about this for a while, and then Mike and Jordan talked about it very separately in the same example on one of their episodes of how to become a personal trainer. And so, but it's the best example I can think of. This illusion that, oh, my salary is safe, I'm secure. No, that can get snuffed in a second. Whereas you as a there are so many things that could possibly happen that you can see trends. If your income is declining and you're okay, then you have a lot of opportunity to pivot, to change, to adapt to new practices, change schedule. There's an infinite array of ways you can pivot before you lose all your income. And I want you guys to think about this. If you're listening to this right now and you're still in the industry and we've gone through the worst uncertainty in the lockdown of COVID and you're still here, barring something that post-apocalyptic like wasteland life, after some sort of horrible event or an asteroid hit, there's probably there's nothing that going to happen in our lifetime that will, I'm certainly hoping, that will be worse than what happened with COVID. I do think that trainers in specific locations, I mean, you got natural disasters, Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, or anybody who was there owned a facility, or God forbid, an earthquake in California. Yeah, sure. Like that stuff can be really massively fucking awful. But on an aggregate industry level, we probably will never see anything this disruptive again. And if you survived it and kind of did okay, you're golden going forward.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, it's been unbelievable for all of us. Yeah, it's just perseverance, you know. Um, you since March with all of this stuff, you're in a good spot.
And I decided I had like a rough 3-4 weeks when it first was happening. And I sat down and I watched a bit more TV than usual. And then I shook it off and I said, screw this. And then I put myself to work studying and learning. And I redid PN level 1 and I got into
Nice.
really great, training textbooks and Michael Boyle stuff. And I've just been reading voraciously, and then just business was good, 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 good. And then now I'm as busy as I've ever been, and more people are coming on.
Well, I want to ask you a question. You were talking about all the reading and stuff you were doing. So I have this desire to read a lot, but I find it very difficult for me to read during the day. And it's because of how I think of it, because I would think of reading as relaxation, as whatever, blah, blah, blah. I have two books like right here that I really want to spend time reading. I struggle with that. And that's going to be something I work towards as a personal kind of goal, is blocking off time and forcing myself to read during the day, because to me, during the day means I need to be doing something. I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. You know what I mean? It's been an interesting struggle.
So I think there's a few things. First of all, if you get a time block, especially if you're in in my office and I have a reading chair, I specifically went and bought a reading chair, and that's symbolic. So I'll try to go read it.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. As things have been busier and busier, it's been harder. So one thing I do is when I'm at Evolve, because I spend the first half of my day there, I make sure I keep a book on me. It's in my computer case. So if I get little chunks of time, I'll pop out a book. I'm currently reading a handful, but one of them is the Ultimate Sales Letter, which Jordan recommended.
Yes, I have that book. Yep.
On his podcast, right? So with his episode, which was great. But I have a couple of adjacent thoughts to this. And I wrote an article in the fall that got a lot of traction. It was on my friend Carolyn McDonald's website. It was Content 101, Create More, Consume Less. It's very easy for some people to get caught in the loop of consuming as a way to procrastinate from putting the effort, building your own brand work, writing in particular, or whatever content creation vehicle you have. So also be very careful about finding the easy road of sitting down and reading books, especially if it's not necessarily stuff you really need imminently, where you feel like you're doing something good, but what you're really doing is avoiding the shit that will drive you forward long term. So for me lately, I've been making sure that my downtime, or if I get a client cancel and I go up in the lounge in Evolve, that I am working on various tasks that move me forward. Writing, I've got a bunch of articles in the works for True Coaching T Nation, or social media content ideas or whatnot. So I'm actually trying not to default to the book, but then at the end of the evening, when everything else is kind of done, I try to set that last hour, because I'm also militant about not being in front of screens and devices in that last hour before bed. So that's the time I like to sit down and try to read. So I've been working through one of Brené Brown's books. They're all great. And I'm rereading Influence by Robert Cialdini, which I think everybody should read. Probably the best sales book that ever existed. And then I'm working through the tail end of The Language of Coaching by Nick Winkelman, which is a phenomenal book. Again, anybody who does a lot of in-person coaching with clients, I would recommend reading this book. It's just phenomenal on training cues, and in particular, external versus internal cues. So that's kind of how I approach it. And then kind of a simple answer is you still got to time block this stuff, right? Put it in the schedule and just say, listen, like this hour is for career development. This is the stuff I'm reading. So therefore, I've put this in my schedule, block it off, and don't let anything disrupt it.
Yeah. And that's the approach that I'm starting to take, because otherwise it's not going to happen. I mean, it won't. It'll be something else that kind of jumps in the way. So it's starting to be blocked off time. I do that with my workouts too, because I was talking to somebody not too long ago that was complaining about their workouts keep getting put off because they're getting into this business right now and they're putting in all this time. And I'm like, that is the one non-negotiable for me. And rightly or wrongly, I make sure I do it. Like I didn't really have a lot of time today, but I went, because I booked the time to do it. And It's just something, it's not going to make me feel I'm really at my best. If I don't, and if I don't, I'm not at my best. So yeah, it's a priority and it's a non-negotiable for me. And I know there's some business people out there that would like, because I've chosen that is above most everything right now, because that helps me. Because if I'm not at my best, I'm no good to the inner circle. I'm no good to any clients. I'm no good to anybody,
It probably, I say this to clients all the time, and I would say this to your clients, every listener, who you have clients who are struggling to make consistent workouts because they're quote busy. Well, the time and the effort that you put into your workouts and the benefit of those workouts will almost certainly give you back that time in terms of mental clarity, energy, productivity, right? Because imagine just how much time I still waste time. I'm not that productive. In fact, it's one of my biggest stresses is shit. I got to get more done and I could be more efficient instead of checking devices or what have you. So that you have good mental clarity, getting into concepts like deep work, like Cal Newport's book, you're going to get a lot more done on the front of writing or content creation or business building. And working out regularly will help you feel better to do it. So I sell that concept to my clientele all the time. And that's one of the ones that buy in, they notice it immediately and it helps set them on a consistent path instead of fighting with your clients all the time to show up to their workouts.
Yeah. It's amazing the difference. And, just for everyone to know, a workout doesn't mean you have to drive 30 minutes to a gym, work out for an hour and a half, and then drive 30 minutes home. Because really, who has that kind of time to do that all the time? It could mean, a 30-minute you work out at home that day or, whatever. But the point is scheduling it and doing it. And then, and even especially when you don't want to do it. And this is something I posted about today, the whole motivation thing, and doing something when you don't want to do it is tough. And a lot of people have a problems pushing through that friction. And I just tell them, you got to start focusing on what you're going to feel like at the end, not the feeling that you feel in the moment of, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. You have to focus on how you're going to feel at the end and think about what is going to make you the most proud. Jordan says this all the time. Are you going to feel the most proud afterwards when you have done something, when you follow through, or are you going to feel the most proud when you just said, screw it, I'm just going to sit here? Do what you're going to feel great about and use that to get you there to do whatever it is you're trying to do that you don't want to do. We all suffer through that. I get asked all the time, why are you so motivated all the time? I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm not motivated all the time. Today was a great example of that. But if I sat there and wallowed in oh man, I just don't feel like it today. Yeah, I would probably not have gone. But I started thinking about, no, because I'm going to feel great when I'm done. And I'm going to have more energy for the rest of my afternoon, which was packed. So, there's, while we're on this, it's so funny. I don't know if you hear this, but I hear this all the time. People want like tips. What's the tip? Well, the tip is do it. There is no tip. There's no magic dust to throw on this to make it better. Sometimes the answer is you just have to grit up and do it, and so many people, think, thank you for that kick in the butt. Kick yourself in the butt. You can do it,
You grit up and just do it enough and it becomes a habit. It becomes your default setting. And I think a lot of us are kind of in that space. And it doesn't mean that we're perfect, but we're more when it's like, hey, I don't feel like it. It's not about the motivation to do it. It's about the discipline that it's part of who I am, my workouts.
Right.
They are an essential part of who I am. They, like you said, exact words, they're a non-negotiable for me. And they are what preserve my physical, but certainly my mental, emotional well-being to be able to take on all the other things and to stop work at 11 o'clock some nights and to be back up and coaching people at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
And like you said, be it doing the workout or doing the work towards a career, it is worth it and it feels good when it's done.
100%. Yeah. There's nothing like it really. And that will propel you to move forward with whatever you're working towards, and you will feel accomplished. You'll get confidence. And I think that's key too. You get more confident. And when you are more confident, you are more willing to do it again, take more chances, whatever it is, I mean, it just kind of steamrolls, but it's that initial friction wall that you have to bust through. And that's the tough love piece. That's where there's nothing that you and I can say to somebody to make you go through that. Well, that is, you do it and think about what you're going to feel like when you're on the other side of that.
Well, this has been wonderful. If everybody listening, if there's a section to go back and listen to, it's probably the last 5-6 minutes of everything that Susan had to say. It's great to get you back on here. I really appreciate your time and your thoughts. Let's make sure everybody knows where to find you online.
Sure. Really, I'm just a little bit of everywhere, but it's Susan Niebergall Fitness, and it's spelled Niebergall, fitness. Instagram, a lot of Instagram. You'll see me on Facebook. I have a YouTube channel, and I have a podcast, the Strong and Lean at Any Age podcast, where we kind of talk about middle-age stuff, that kind of thing. So you'll find me everywhere.
Yeah, I've been finding more and more, because I've been trying to get people to direct them to my Instagram, and I link out to everything else. If I'm writing articles on publications or, podcast stuff or whatever, I'm still putting it all up on Instagram because that's where I'm more active. Traditionally,
right.
Still on Facebook. You can go follow me there, but you don't see the posts as much on that algorithm. So, but Instagram has been my playground. I've been having a lot of fun with it. If you're interested in content creation and anything like that, definitely go connect with me on there, because that's where I've been playing with. And
you've been crushing it, by the way.
Thank you. I'm a little late to the game compared to, you guys we were talking about earlier, but it's been a lot of fun. So, and I appreciate the fact that, every time you share something of mine, and it, when I get those big account shares, because I have so many friends in the industry who've got those big followings, that tends to drive follower growth. So I'm sure there's people listening right now. If you've found me through Susan or Jordan or Mike Isertel or someone else along those lines, again, let me know where you came from originally. And thanks for everybody who's been listening consistently. Again, I want to hear from you guys. Shoot me a message. If you are listening, a regular listener, but you're not following me on Instagram, please connect with me there. That is really the hub of everything that I'm doing. And most of all, go follow Susan. And if you are recently finding this and finding my work based on, being one of Susan's followers, well, we had Jordan on not too long ago. Guido's not with me anymore. So I had Jordan on, I think it was my 5th episode, and we're on number 13 of the new rebrand. So maybe go check that out and enjoy that. And if it's good enough and you like the other library of people I've had on as guests, maybe you'll stick around and subscribe. So, but again, thanks either way. I appreciate the fact that you're here. And we're going to chat a little bit off air. And thanks, guys. Hopefully
thank you
next week.